let's talk about both Kamala Harris and JD Vance for a bit, just kind of like updates to what is currently happening in the world of politics. As we all know, last week Joe Biden dropped out, and it was kind of left up in the air of what exactly was going to happen in terms of the presidential nominee, because you know everyone knew that Joe Biden was going to be the candidate until he dropped out. Obviously, that came after a big push from Democrats trying to get him out of there. And it was something that just kind of like happened out of nowhere. While he did endorse Kamala Harris, it was a little uncertain if the rest of the Democratic Party were going to get behind her. But as we now know, while she is not the nominee, because that will be something that will take place with the DNC of who the official nominee for the party is, Harris has now picked up enough delegate support to win the nomination. Now, obviously, again, that doesn't mean that there can be someone else, but she has been really the only name out there. And really, the whole conversation when it comes to her run in terms of, who's running or not, really just comes from who's going to be her VP. So it seems pretty set in stone that she is going to be the Democratic nominee for this, presidential race, which I think is a smart move. Again, I wasn't completely against an open convention, but I think going with a Democratic nominee right out of the gate before the convention is a smart thing to do. Because right now, something that the Democratic Party really needs to look like is a party that is unified, and it just didn't. And like even before this, even before the debate where Joe Biden's age was really very much showing, the Democratic Party just did not look like a competent party. And now with this, they do look a little bit more together. I think, again, the VP pick is still very important. A lot of people are suggesting Pete Buttigieg. I do not agree with that. I think, I'm blanking on his name now. Like Adam Bashir, the Kentucky governor, would be a great pick. Like the guy literally won a deep red state. Like he literally won his governor run. Yeah, right here. They joined endorsements from Kentucky's Adam Bashir. Like the guy literally won his race in a very deep red state by just having good policy. I think he would definitely make a good pick. Josh Shapiro is one that got brought up a lot too. I think that's like literally one of the worst picks. But yeah, I've seen a lot of push for like Buttigieg, but we'll have to see there. That is something I don't think that will get announced until the national convention, similar to what Trump did with JD Vance. And we'll get to him later. We'll get to JD Vance later. But yeah, she has now picked enough delegates. She has now broken a fundraising record with getting 81 million in the span of like 24 hours. So she's doing pretty well for herself, with the start of her campaign. But we do need to talk about the elephant in the room, something that even when it was announced that that Biden was endorsing her and that she was more than likely going to be the nominee, this is still something that is going to hurt her, and it's her stance on Gaza. Now, I have said before, she has been a lot more anti-Israel than Biden was, but that's literally not a hard thing to do at all. After Netanyahu spoke to Congress in a fucking disgusting speech, I was thinking about like showing it on stream and us reacting to it, but it's just completely fucking disgusting. I can't believe they actually invited him. And this comes after the ICJ ruled that Israel is an apartheid state, like is conducting acts of apartheid. And it's just so fucking disgusting that they had this war criminal in Congress just talking to a full audience. Most of the Democratic congressmen there did not show up. I think it's like over 100 people from the Democratic side did not show up for that hearing, like for that address. I believe a lot of senators did not show up as well, as at least like 30 on the Democratic side just no-showed the event or just acted in terms of protest, being like, no, I'm not showing up there. And they had to fill a lot of the seats with just like, I'm not sure, I think it might have been staffers, I'm not sure. They just kind of filled seats. Fucking, for once in his life, John Fetterman wore a suit. That's the only thing he would wear a suit for. Harris also no-showed the event. And she literally like would come out and say after the fact, she would address the public being like, yeah, this needs to end. It is time for this war to end. It is time for this war to end, Harris said in a televised statement after she held face-to-face talks with Netanyahu. Harris, the likely presidential nominee for the Democrats, after Biden dropped out of the election race on Sunday, did not mince words about the humanitarian crisis gripping Gaza after 9 months of war between Israel and Hamas militants. We cannot allow ourselves to be numb to the suffering, and I will not be quiet. Harris' remarks were sharp and serious in tone and raised the question of whether she would be more aggressive in dealing with Netanyahu if elected president on November 5th, but analysts do not expect there to be a major shift in U.S. policy towards Israel. She did very much state that, this needs to end. We need to, work towards a movement. There has been hopeful movement and talks to secure an agreement on this deal. And as I just told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. She still talks about how Israel has a right to defend itself, even though it literally does not, due to the fact that it is, conducting actions of an apartheid state. It literally does not have the right to defend itself. It's completely disgusting. Again, it's not a bad look, but it's not a great look. It's almost very much like a Joe Biden look, at least even before he dropped out. It doesn't bring a lot of faith to people who, people on the left who are still very hesitant when it comes to the Democratic Party's stance on Israel. We also have this statement here from her in terms of the protests that happened outside of Congress. It's just fucking stupid. Yeah, so people showed up to protest Benjamin Netanyahu addressing Congress, and this is what she had to say in response to that. Yesterday at Union Station in Washington, D.C., we saw despicable acts by unpatriotic protesters and dangerous hate-filled rhetoric. I condemn any individuals associated with the brutal terrorist organization Hamas who has vowed to annihilate the state of Israel and kill Jews. Pro-Hamas graffiti and rhetoric is abhorrent, and we must not tolerate it in our nation. I condemn the burning of the American flag. The flag is a symbol of our highest ideals as a nation. It represents the promise of America. It should never be desecrated in that way. So what is, us bombing brown people? That's what America does. But, what... This is very, this whole statement right here, it sounds like Joe Biden ghost wrote this for her. It's just completely disgusting. It's not a great look. And here's... The thing is that, Kamala Harris has seemingly been in support of, student protesters, of college protesters, the ones that we covered, a few months back. She very much is in support of those. This just feels so gross. It almost feels now that she is the presidential nominee, it feels like she's taken a hard stance that's somewhat more pro-Israel in a way to, favor, despite the fact that, it's not going to work. A few months ago when we covered, it was, the Democratic primaries, and there were certain states, certain swing states, that had a huge wave of people, despite the fact that they were only really organized for a week before the votes. They only started organizing a week before the primary votes took place. There were still groups who were very much being we had to vote undecided to send a message that we just do not agree with the fact that Joe Biden is more than likely going to be our president, or that there's really no good options when it came to the Democratic primaries. And the reason why that happened is, for the most part, because of Joe Biden's response and the way that he talked about what was going on with Israel-Palestine. And this message right here, this statement that she put out herself, is not going to really send anyone. It's not going to be favorable to those voters at the end of the day. It's just not. And there's this whole thing with Benjamin Netanyahu's address. He lied multiple times. I don't plan on playing the entire speech because for the most part, it's honestly mostly just people in Congress clapping at every single word he says. They clap hard. Everyone in there clapped harder than they would have if the president literally was there, if any president was there. But no, when Netanyahu's there, everyone just claps like a damn seal. He lied about the death toll, the ratio of combatant civilian casualties. Right here, the claim. Netanyahu said a commander in Rafah told him that practically no civilian deaths in the city, with the exception of a singular incident where shrapnel from a bomb hit a Hamas weapons depot and unintentionally killed 24 people. The fact is that there were multiple reports of several strikes in Rafah that resulted in civilian deaths. Starving, yeah, he lies about the age, shit like that. There was one big one right here that nobody decided to fact check at all. Despite the fact that there is proof otherwise to this claim, he lied about there being 2 babies who were killed in an attic. Despite the fact that this was just an obvious lie, apparently there was only 1 baby that died, which is still terrible. But lying about 2 of them, Apparently he has lied about this before, but nobody really brings this up at all. This entire address was just lie after lie after lie. And the media does not do a good job of covering it at all. Like, this is the best we get from like CNN, but just completely disgusting how they talk about this. And again, this is like a big issue when it comes to Kamala running, and when it comes to just this was any other Democrat, this would also be a big problem. Basically, essentially any stance that Joe Biden took, they really need to go further left with it, because like Joe Biden was very pro-Israel. If they were just at least, I would say like 25% more critical on Israel than Joe Biden, they would be doing great. I think more people would feel better voting for them. I still think there would be people who would, turn away their vote. I'm definitely not voting for her. I wasn't going to go vote for Joe Biden either. But at the end of the day, the way that she responds to like this and the light criticism she gives to Benjamin Netanyahu in that televised statement, it's just not a great look for her. Moving on to JD Vance, this is really just going to be very short. He's just unpopular. He's incredibly unpopular. He has broken polling records in the worst way. This is from, I believe, Business Insider. JD Vance has a net negative approval rating following the RNC. Since 2000, VP nominees typically had a net positive rating of 19 points after their convention. Vance has long pulled behind other Republicans, and some are questioning whether he was a wise pick. The answer, no. He definitely wasn't. I think the only person who was rooting for him was Don Jr., and that is like the worst person that you could have to support you. Because he's just a fucking moron. I don't know who a great pick would have been, in all honesty. Here we have Vance heavily underperformed in his 2020 Ohio Senate race, at least compared with how other Republicans performed in the state that year. Vance defeated his opponent, then Democratic Representative Tim Ryan, by only 6 percentage points. In comparison, Republican Governor Mike DeWine crushed his Democratic opponent, former Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley, by 25 percentage points. And here's the thing, I'm from Ohio. We're a red state. It's a very red state here. It's an easy win. It should have been an easy win, and people still did not. And he heavily underperformed. Like, why would this be the guy you go to? I think they were hoping that he would kind of do well in what it's called the Rust Belt region. Cities in the Rust Belt include Allentown, Baltimore, Buffalo, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Gary, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Rochester, Toledo. You didn't get the idea. You kind of understand the people that would be in the Rust Belt. Like, it should be very, easy pickings for Republicans in some stands, but even then, JD Vance is not credited. Mostly because, with his book, Hillbilly Elegy, it's literally a book that makes fun of these people. That's the thing. He obviously does not get the people in this region, and for some reason, they thought he would be a great pick to help, get votes from that region. No. The guy, comes across as a podcast bro in a region where people would not like those type of people. But we'll get into that later because I want to save the best part of this for last. But yeah, he has terrible views when it comes to rape and abortion, obviously. Essentially what he's saying there is no, under no circumstance, which is not a great view, especially when the overturning of Roe v. Wade was so unpopular. Just to be straight up just against abortion is not a great look when you look at swing voters who probably would care more about the issue. There's also this right here. JD Vance tries to defend childish cat ladies remark amid backlash. Apparently this was something he said back in 2021. Republican vice presidential nominee JD Vance says his comments made in 2021 about childish cat ladies was directed at the Democratic Party for being anti-family. And the reason why this is a big factor right now is because with Kamala Harris being more than likely the presidential nominee for the Democrats, she is she is a mother, she is a stepmother. She has no children of her own. And that's been something that the Republicans have been trying to go after, despite the fact that I don't think it's a great look for them too. You're just signaling to your base at this point, at that point, if you're a step parent, you're not their real parent and they're not your real kids, regardless of what your relationship is like. It's just completely disgusting. I don't know how they feel like that's going to go with swing voters. And again, this comes after apparently top GOP leaders were just hey guys, since Kamala's going to more than likely be the candidate, don't try to be as racist. Please tone down the racism and the sexism, please. Because if you go full hog with that, we are going to lose.
Trump's running mate JD Vance making another unforced error tonight as he looks to tamp down criticism over his disparaging remarks about, quote, childless cat ladies. Instead, when he tried to dampen it down, he has created a new firestorm. Tonight, making it clear that, quote, I've got nothing against cats, but going on to say that the left has become anti-family and that Democrats want to replace American children with immigrants.
I've got nothing against cats. I've got nothing against dogs. I've got one dog. People are focusing so much on the sarcasm and not on the substance of what I actually said. And the substance of what I said, Megan, I'm sorry, it's true. It is true that we become anti-family. It is true that the left has become anti-child. But the simple point that I made is that having children, becoming a father, becoming a mother, I really do think it changes your perspective in a pretty profound way. This is about criticism.
Yeah, but people like you, like JD Vance, make it so and try to advocate for things that would make it harder for people to support a child. Not just support a child, have a child. In general, they make it impossible as hell to do things like that. Like JD Vance very much tries to, advocate for himself as fighting for the working American people, but like the people that he gets most of his funding from are people like Peter Thiel. People in his region, which is like the Silicon Valley types, the tech bro, shit like that. We might as well just get into it now. The whole thing with JD Vance is that, especially now, after his whole being anti-Trump and hillbilly elegy path did not work out, where he was basically just making fun of people from the Rust Belt region, obviously that did not work for him. So now he's trying to push towards this, post towards like pro-Trump. He's been doing it for like the last few years because obviously he's seeing that it's working out favorable for him, even though he's still not that well liked and people still don't want to vote for him. But that's a whole different thing, is because he's kind of cosplaying. He wants to cosplay as these people to try to get their favor, but he's just very unlikable. And we see it more so here. Like, this guy does not have any charisma whatsoever.
It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but
nobody laughs. Barely anyone reacts.
It's good.
It's good.
I love you guys.
It's like nobody, you could hear a pin drop in that. And this should be a crowd that is like very easy to win over. He's literally at a Trump rally. There's so many shit that you can say and they'll just clap along. But he's just so uncharismatic. He's so unlikable that even in a place that he should be striving at right now, if he's really this pro-Trump guy, he's not a good pick. He's just really not. Especially with like, he has the worst instincts with like what we've seen here and like with this right here. Like this right here, it just feels like I feel like is proof that he's just trying to cosplay as someone like this. Because like he gives off the vibe of someone who wants to relate to these people when he's just the furthest thing from it. If he wanted to relate to these people, like the people of the like Rust Belt region essentially, he would just, talk about how he was drinking Mountain Dew while having some Copenhagen in his mouth while he was out hunting for deer and calling his wife a bitch. Like, that's literally like almost my brother. And my brother is a Trump voter. He would definitely do that. But I feel like if I showed him this, he would just be like, fuck this guy. Like, he would see this guy for who he truly is, and that is someone who's just trying to pander. So yeah, that's all I really got to talk about on that front. So